All right, so Harry Dunn, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on our show today. And let me start by saying congratulations on being presented the Presidential Citizens Medal. Personally, I'd like to get one. So Joe, if you're listening, right, hello. Right. And by the way, let me also say it's very well deserved. Now,
Thank you.
Listen, you deserve it, my friend. You've been on a very long, strange trip, not too dissimilar, I hate to say it, from mine, which is a fucking nightmare. I mean, that doesn't end with receiving that honor, but what a journey. So let's go back to the beginning, if you would. Tell us a bit about January 6th of 2020. Were you expecting trouble that day?
Well, first of all, glad to be here with you, man. It's good to be with you. I always respect a lot of the things that you have to say. I see you on a lot of the programs. Nicole Wallace, I think very highly of her. And it's good to be on with you. You know, you always have a lot to offer, a hell of a unique perspective. So, and I'm also thankful for you just being able to just tell the truth about some things. I looked up what the definition of, I don't know how to pronounce the mea culpa, just the definition of it, the acknowledgement of one's fault or error. I love that, just because that's what we're just seeking, the acknowledgement of the truth and about what was wrong, about error. So
it's also, by the way, my initials. Just so you know.
I know, yeah. I like that. That's how, how cool is that,
Yeah.
So I think it's completely fitting. So appreciate you and, great to talk with you. But to go back to that day, we're expecting trouble. One thing that I talked about so much about January 6th and about our job as just Capitol Police officers is our job is to provide people the opportunity to protest whatever peacefully, because it's within their rights. So I don't care what you're protesting. We've seen it all before. So we were expecting maybe a little bit of civil disobedience, keyword civil. So a couple of arrests, people, that's their choice. We've arrested people who did not abide by the laws to protest. So that's kind of what I was expecting, just as a regular frontline officer of that day. We saw a couple little bulletins, like Instagram posts or Snapchat posts. Hey, we're storming the Capitol today. I'm like, whatever, y'all not coming in here. Like, that's not happening. And so no, I wasn't expecting violence on the scale that we had it. So
no, not at all, huh? Because the reason that I asked that question is I saw an article in Rolling Stone magazine by Tim Dickinson. And the article is Stop the Steal founder tipped off Paul Gosar to the violence that was going to be had on January 6th. And this, he was a right-winger, the top aide for Ali Alexander. He warned Gosar, I think you and your staff should leave. That's amazing to me. And, I'm aware on how qualified not just Metropolitan Police, Capitol Police, our Secret Service, FBI, all of our law enforcement. They knew what was going on because they saw what was taking place at the hotel, not just the Trump Hotel in D.C. on the 5th, but also the other location that the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, that they all met at. They clearly knew that there was some violent shit that was going to be happening. And yet, I feel as if though nothing was done. Forget about just to protect the Capitol as a structure, but those of you that actually work at the Capitol, at the end of the day, I worked in the Capitol in 1987 and 1988. All right, I worked for Congressman Joe Moakley. I was at American University attending college. I had put in an application for an assistant legislative assistant, and I went and I started working there in the Capitol.
Wow. Didn't
And
know that.
I had my little pass, and it was interesting because my pass said Sergeant at Arms, and I don't know, maybe that was just a mistake, but I was able to go anywhere that I wanted. I think they made a mistake, but it was what it was. All right, and I never said anything, so it gave me full access to the place. But what I thought was really amazing is I had gotten an opportunity to meet so many Capitol Police, even when I was coming in to testify to the various committees. Now, people only think that I testified to the House Oversight Committee, the one that you all saw live. I testified 8 additional times in the skiffs.
Oh, I know. I saw.
Right.
I know when you came up there. I know.
Right. Well, of course, you would know. But my point is, they should have done more to protect those of you that are working in order to keep the Capitol safe and to keep the people's house fully protected. But they didn't do that. You ever think about how that happened?
That's one of the things that I think about with the January 6th committee. Like, while I'm so appreciative of the work and the stuff that they did uncover, there's so many questions that are left unanswered. Obviously there were failures that day, whether it be communication, dissemination of information, whatever. Some things went wrong, and there's not really a definitive answer on what it was. We, at least in the congressional record, at least. And I wish that they would have done a little bit more digging down deep in that. Seeing the stuff that, even just from the stuff that's floating around on Twitter and the internet, these memos, and if you look at our former chief Sund, who has his book out, he's telling a lot of those things, and those things I think should be addressed, or at least acknowledged, because, like I said, it's not just enough to put the people responsible for committing those acts in jail or wherever you want to put them, but also to make sure that if the ball was dropped somewhere, to fix that, to make sure that doesn't happen again. It may not be anything criminal or maybe negligent or an oversight. Those oversights can't happen again. So we need to make sure those are addressed. So when I say we, I mean us, America as a country, like this, we got to fix that. We got to fix it, and you can't fix it without acknowledging that it happened in the first place. So I wish they would do a little bit more they would have done a little more oversight on that, the failures of communication in the law enforcement community.
You think it was only that, or do you think that someone like Trump or his, let's just say, inner circle, that they knew that this was going to happen? Look, we know Roger Stone knew what was happening. We know that Steve Bannon knew what was happening. I mean, this stupid son of a bitch fucking talked about it on his podcast.
Yeah,
he talked about it. And Roger Stone out there bragging, and so on. But interestingly enough, for 187 minutes, the guy disappears. There's no call within which to back you guys up. Remember, and the reason I brought up about the different times that I've been there, going back from 87 and 88 all the way to my congressional testimony, is because there's really not that many of you. How many people are actually in the Capitol Police?
Well, it is. We got a pretty big force. Actually, what happened is, on that day, there weren't that many of us there. It was.
Well, how many in the entire force?
I think we have about 1,800 officers or so, but that's spread out through a whole a huge campus, and throughout this the jurisdiction of the Capitol Police, which isn't just the U.S. Capitol.
Right. And how many were actually there at the Capitol on January 6th?
I'd be speculating on that number. I mean, it felt like it was just 20 of us.
Something like that, right?
But it was more than that.
Let's
I think,
even say,
I think our chief in his book said we were outnumbered 58-1.
That's the point I was gonna raise, Harry. It makes no difference, right? Because you're not a little guy. I mean, you're a pretty big fella, right? And
6'7".
These people didn't give a shit. They didn't look at you as law. They didn't look at you as a police officer, Capitol Police officer, a big fella, 6'7". they looked at you as an obstacle, and their feeling was very similar to, a wolf pack. They were going to, you may have knocked one guy out, but while you're swinging at him, someone's hitting you from behind. Kind of like what happened to, Michael Fanone and to some of the others. And the fact that there wasn't enough individuals and the 187 minutes took place that he was enjoying this, watching it on his television, and of course, lying about it. Like I said, my hat's off to you,
Thanks.
For everything that you did, for making sure that, our elected officials, some of whom probably didn't deserve your help, right? Like Paul Gosar, like Lauren Boebert, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. These individuals, and I'm not saying that they deserve to get hurt. However, they are part of that far alt-right. These, these MAGA lawmakers, right? They are part of it, and they were in contact with the folks like Ali Alexander and the Stop the Steal movement. They knew that the shit was outside, what was happening. People scaling the walls like they're in a movie. I mean, that's really what it looked like to me, when I was watching it in total horror. So I could only imagine what was going, through your head.
That day, all I was really concerned about was surviving and making sure my coworkers, the person next to me that I was fighting next to, went home to their family, went home safely. We got a lot of brave men and women that were out there fighting their ass off. To use
every one of you.
To use a football analogy, we left it all on the field. Everybody gave everything they had, and it was enough. But to the point about the specific members and everything like that, the thing about doing our job is, obviously the ultimate accountability for a politician is at the ballot box. So if people still elect these people into office, it represents what they want, and that is America. And we may not agree with it. It fucking sucks, to put it bluntly, but these people are electing people who they think will best represent them. So that a portion of America, give it a smaller portion, I'm encouraged that there are more good people out there than bad, but these people are representing people that think like them, because they're electing them to office. And that's the thing about democracy. That's how it works. It sucks, but people are allowed to have these. But yes, when it comes to violence and that, there's no room for that. There's no room for that. Yeah, we can have dissenting, opinions and everything like that. But what we saw on January 6th, man, and what you saw in Brazil, that shit can't happen, man. And it's terrible that it does happen. But it's part of our country, and it fucking sucks.
Did you play college ball?
I played at James Madison University. We're 2004 national champions. So.
Yeah, and I bet you were an offensive lineman, weren't you?
Offensive tackle.
Uh-huh.
Got real fast hands, man.
Yeah. What were you? What were you, like number 96 or something like that?
No, 69, baby.
Yeah, I bet you were. Yeah. When I was at law school, I spent a lot of time. A couple of guys were living with me. They played for Michigan State. And I got a chance, even as a non-matriculating student, to hang out at the Duffy Doherty building, and that was under Coach Perlis. So I ran all the drills. Meanwhile, at the time, I was I'm 5'11 and a half. At the time, I was about 200, and these guys are 6'7", right? 6'8".
You look like a little fella.
305, 305, 310. Man, I got thrown around like a rag doll, but I do have to say, people don't realize how hard being a college ball player is in any sport, but especially football. But look, and I bring that up, of course, again, because these people were there to do damage. They were ready, willing, and able. They brought bear spray, they brought zip ties, they brought bats and sticks and so on. And I don't care how big you are, as they always said, get them by the knees. Right? Any one of these guys hits you across the knee. I don't care how big you are. You take the guy's legs out, And it's that sort of disrespect for law enforcement should never exist, not just in the Capitol, but all across America. Remember the olden days, you see the movies that a guy would walk the streets, he'd have the shield, and he was respected. Today, there's too many people that see that shield as like a target. And that's exactly the way that these guys, so everything that they're getting, these 450 that were prosecuted, each and every one of them deserve exactly what they're getting. And you, my brother, you deserve that Presidential Citizens Medal. Now,
thank you. Thanks, man.
You want, like I said, if the next time you see the president, you tell him, don't forget about Mike Cohen. I appreciate you on that one.
I'll see what I can do, man.
Yeah. That's take care of a friend. So let me ask you this then. Were you surprised that so many MAGA Republicans who supposedly allege that they back the blue and support our troops had turned on the police, literally protecting the Capitol and themselves that day? And do you think that the attackers were out of their minds? I mean, cult members who drank the Trump Kool-Aid and felt justified beating police and trespassing and damaging our Capitol. I mean, what was the general vibe of the crowd that day?
When I testified these individuals like possessed zombies. There was nothing that you couldn't reason with these individuals. They had already made their minds up on what they were doing. On January 6th, they were telling us. That's why one of the reasons why, to jump around real quick, that's why it's so frustrating with the process of which the accountability is happening, because they told us on January 6th they were there because Donald Trump sent them. Like, so, on January 6th, on January 7th, we knew, who organized it, who orchestrated. They were telling us while they were attacking us and beating our heads in. They told us that. And yes, they felt emboldened because the most powerful person on the planet told them to do so. Think about the backing, and, if somebody gives you their blessing to go do something, if you're the president and I told you to do it, tell them the president sent you. Like when I was at the White House last week, my daughter got a note from the president that said, please excuse her from school. Like, it can't get much better than that. So yeah, it's a sense of emboldenment and entitlement. They thought they were right. So it's insane. And to the other point about, the back the blue crowd and stuff like that, that's just a damn slogan. And they just say it to fundraise and, make money. Show me with your actions, not a slogan on a t-shirt or something like that. It sounds cool, back the blue, and it's a sound bite, and show me your actions and not a slogan.
Yeah, because like I said, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, right? Paul Gosar, who I fucking despise. I mean, honestly, I think he's one of the worst pieces of shit that we have representing this country. And it makes us look so weak and stupid in the eyes of the world. When I
got a disclaimer. I have to have a neutral opinion about the members that I'm sworn to protect, so I got a very neutral opinion about it.
That's all right, because good, because that's my opinion. So, right. And so the fact of the matter is that they knew that this was going on. And if they're going to make the statements that they back the blue, right, then back the blue, as you say. Your words mean absolutely nothing. And now they're all saying, well, as a direct result, we're going to need security, our lives were in jeopardy. It's interesting that the same people that are asking for it, not one of them, for example, when I was testifying, I had to drive to DC to testify each and every time. I couldn't take the train. I put myself in jeopardy. So now I'm on the train. Who knows who's on there? Maybe one of these MAGA fools. Maybe by the time I get off and I'm at Union Station and I'm waiting for a cab, I get hit across the back of the head with a steel pipe or worse. Right? I mean, this is the problem. They don't care about anyone except for themselves. They only care about their power, and they care about getting reelected so they can keep their power. They're just, it's truly disgraceful. So let me then move on and ask you this, because after the attack, How did you and the other officers cope with the reality that you had just been attacked by your fellow Americans? And especially once some of the members of Congress, the ones that you protected, began to deny the severity and intent of the riots. I mean, how do you keep from losing your mind?
Well, one of the things that police officers do just in general, I guess, which is kind of make, some of us that have spoken out an enigma, they keep to themselves. And that's why one of the things that I've been preaching out is mental health, and they keep quiet about it. I mean, sure, we have quiet conversations, here and there in passing, about, we'll be like, this is some bullshit. And we leave, and people leave it at that. So a lot of individuals, they deal with the trauma and the suffering that day in quiet. And that's just how they deal with it. And they wake up and it's business as usual, going to do their job. That's why I'm so proud to work with such a strong group of men and women, because we still get up. Like, people ask me, when did you go back to work? On January 7th, 5 hours after I left on the 6th. Like, what do you mean? Like, we got to go to work tomorrow. And so many of my coworkers did the exact same thing. But it's frustrating, but we realize, what can we really do? Because like I said earlier, the ultimate accountability is at the ballot box. And our job is to not necessarily pick who's there, but to protect the will of the American people, even if we disagree with it. So we try to stay very professional. But in a personal sense, it's frustrating. And but you got to come to the realization, Mike, man, this is kind of like who we are as a country. We're split, and it's, some people don't care about the truth, and some people only want the truth, and they pick and choose when it's convenient for them, when they want to hear the truth. So it's just where we are, and it fucking sucks, to put it bluntly.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't know about you, but I know as a direct result of my journey, I know that I suffer from the classic case of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I would probably imagine that you and every single one of the Capitol Police officers, rightfully so, are experiencing the same, psychiatric disorder that I do every single day, and 24/7, even when I'm sleeping, they say that the PTSD, right, the clinical definition for it, it's a psychiatric disorder that may occur in people who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event, series of events, or set of circumstances. We did.
Yeah.
We did. Now, many people will say, yeah, but everybody experiences some sort of a traumatic event in their life. There's a line. And, yes, everybody is different, and some people have a lower threshold. But your experience, and I'm going to throw mine into it as well, especially the second time, the unconstitutional remand, when they threw my ass into a freezer for 3 hours. I felt like my teeth were going to fall out of my mouth. That's how cold I was, in this cell that was like 40 degrees. But they say that people with PTSD have intense, disturbing thoughts and feelings related to their experience that last long after the traumatic event has ended. Like I said, I'm already out longer than I was in, but I can't get past it. Yeah. I can't sleep through a night. I hear keys rattling. It makes me shake. Lights, bright lights, because they would flash a flashlight in your eye every 30 minutes while you're sleeping with one of those mega wattage type of lights to make you jump so that they can make sure that you're still alive. Do you have those same intense, disturbing thoughts and feelings? You have gone back to work. So when you're there, what's going through your head? What's going through your heart?
The things that help me get through that is a lot of therapy, man. And I've been a huge proponent of people getting help. And like you said, a lot of people will experience some kind of stressful disorder or a traumatic experience. Yeah. And like you said, there's some people handle it better than others. But in the beginning, it was tough. You go back to work, and I mean, we went back to work for a couple months, and there were windows that were still broken weeks after, maybe a month, up to a month or so after. The windows were still broken. You could see where there's fire extinguishers and the pepper sprays stained the ground, and there were blood drippings on the concrete that it took a while to get up. You got boarded up windows. I mean, of the U.S. Capitol, like we just said earlier. Think about that. That of the U.S. Capitol is boarded up windows, and there's this big giant fence with barbed wire surrounding the entire U.S. Capitol grounds, and we walking into like it's like a militarized zone, and it sucks, but it's hard to ever forget it. But that's part of my mission, to make sure nobody ever forgets that shit.
And I know exactly how you're feeling, which is why I wrote my 2 books. And it's why I go out there and I do the things that I do every single day, including the creation of this podcast, because I don't want anyone to ever experience what I experienced at the hands of a wannabe autocrat and his lapdog, Bill Barr, right? The Attorney General, when they weaponized the Department of Justice to go against their critics. That's very much like this insurrection. It's unfucking American. And end of story. So you are seeing therapy. You're going for therapy. So I haven't started it yet. I'll tell you a funny story. I spoke to this therapist, and he specializes specifically in PTSD. Mostly his clientele are, former veterans, Afghanistan, Iraq, and so on, who saw some obviously very ugly things, and they just can't get it. And I'm sure, like the same way I experience it, you experience it. Loud noises, lights, flashing lights, even some television shows that I'm watching, it triggers an automatic response.
Hell, seeing a MAGA hat. Seeing somebody in a MAGA hat,
I had that issue. I had that issue with a guy in the airport when I was going to go down to Florida to visit my parents. This asshat wearing the MAGA starts screaming at me and so on, while I'm standing online to go through the check-in. I mean, it was, they don't realize what it does to your nervous system.
Yeah.
But I went to his office, and I went up and I opened the door, and there were a whole bunch of people sitting in the office, and it said, Department of Psychiatry, because it's affiliated to a hospital. And I opened up the door, and I could not physically put my leg over the door line and enter. I just couldn't do it. It was like my heart started racing. My ears like clogged up as if I was underwater, and I just turned around and I left. And he's a really decent man, and he calls me up and he said to me, where are you? I said, I have to be honest with you, I couldn't cross the threshold in. I saw those gigantic words and it freaked me out. And he goes, you really need to speak to me. You really need to see somebody, because PTSD is real. And
that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, man, like you said, you haven't gone. Have you tried since then? I mean, that shit is helpful, man. I'm telling you. And whether it's one person, or it's fucking mental health is health, man. And, we got to take care of our minds just like we take care of our bodies, man.
Yeah, I try to, I try to do it, and I try to use this podcast as a way of the venting, but
absolutely,
I know that there are probably techniques that they're teaching you and all, especially, I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know how you go back to that property and you stand there after seeing and experiencing everything that you did. I walked past the Trump Tower the other day, and it's the first time that I walked past the front doors in 4 years. And I had such an uneasy feeling about the building, about the people that are working, everything. So like I said, if I was wearing a hat right now, I would take it off to you.
I feel like it's a little bit different, man, you know, and I'm not downplaying your experience at all, because that shit, man, you went through, man. But like I testified before the January 6th committee, and I said something to the effect of democracy is bigger than any one person or any one party. You got to fight for, you have to fight for it. And me leaving my job, in my mind, symbolizes that they won. Like, this shit's worth fighting for. And
Amen.
I'm not letting these
with
fuckers
you.
win, man. You know,
I
I'm not
am
letting
with
these
you.
fuckers win. I'm not quitting. Like, I'm still here. I'm still fighting, and I'm still doing my job. I'm proud of what I did on January 6th. I'm proud of my coworkers and what their fight that they did on January 6th. And, you know, the people who stormed and, tarnished the Capitol, y'all should be offended. Y'all should be the ones quitting. Y'all should be the ones renouncing your American citizenship because you shitted on this country. And I'm proud of what I did, and I'm going to keep on going back every single day. Yeah, it's hard, but I'm proud of it. I'm proud of what we did, and it's worth it.
Yeah, and I have to be honest with you, I feel exactly the same. So many people say to me, you know, as more and more investigations keep opening up and so on, they keep, why are you doing it? Why are you cooperating? Nobody did a goddamn thing for you. You went to fucking prison for another guy getting his fucking pecker pulled by a porn star. The rest of it was bullshit made up, right? And you've lost your law license. I lost my money. I lost my respect. I didn't lose my family. Right. But at the end of the day, I lost so much, but I keep going back and providing more and more. And they ask me why. I said, same thing that you did, because this country is worth it. Mm-hmm. Right. And I feel exactly the same way you do. So, which brings me to my question. I wonder, were you political before the insurrection at all? And are you political now? I mean, you're definitely political now.
Yeah, I have my views about, obviously I do, but I just think a lot of that comes with growth and maturity. Like, you get a little older in your life and you start caring about things that affect you. Like, as a younger kid, I didn't care about Social Security and Medicaid, but I'm going to need it eventually. So let me start caring about it. Let me start paying attention to that kind of stuff. Or, so I think it just had an evolution, had to do with some maturity to just becoming mature. And also you're surrounded by these people with these different issues. I mean, you're in, it's what I do. I'm around this 24/7. Well, I'm at work, at least in my work hours. But we need people to be engaged and care and know what's going on. I wouldn't have cared about a classified document, whether Biden or Trump, I didn't care. But now I'm, what's going on with this? People need to be engaged. I prefer people to be educated instead of opinionated. And I feel like that's the way you need to be. We need to care about our countries. Like, yes, I am now. I care about even the down ballot elections in my local community. That shit matters. And people want to complain about, I was at a bar, not to go figure, we're talking politics at a bar. And this guy was complaining about his biggest concern in this country was immigration. And then I was like, do you know who you voted for? And do you know where that person's stance is on the immigration and stuff? I don't even know my congressman's name. I'm like, so what do you mean you don't? Like, huh? All right, just start somewhere. And people don't even care. So many people have that mentality that they just don't care. They've lost hope. And to be frank, I get losing hope a little bit, because it hasn't, like, this country has showed its ass in a bad way. So I guess it's not really, but it's worth fighting for it. And that's the point that I'm making. It's worth fighting for. It's worth it. So yeah, I'm political. I am. I care about a lot of issues, and you should.
Down the road, because you are thankfully getting not just notoriety, but respect for what you did that disgraceful day. Would you ever run for politics yourself?
It's
Would you ever give it a shot?
It's funny, man. A lot of people, like, even on my Twitter, like, when said you need to run for something, I wouldn't put it. No, yeah, I would. I like being I like using my voice, right? And I'm going to say the way I feel. And if people like what I have to say or agree with it, then I'm more than happy to keep saying it. I'm very happy with my congressman now, to be frank, is Congressman Jamie Raskin. And I would like to
Jamie's the best.
I love him. He's my
Jamie's
congressman.
the best.
So I couldn't be happier. Like, he's the best. And I wish him well on his road to recovery. I
texted him a couple of days ago, wishing him exactly the same thing. He's a really good man. I bumped into him again not too long ago at MSNBC, leaving Nicole's station. And, we were sitting, we were talking. He's just really good people. And
he's he's a great man. So, sure. Would I consider it? Sure. Do I have aspirations too? Nah, not really. Would I consider it? Yeah, I absolutely would. But I'm happy with who's representing me now in Congress, and Congressman Jamie Raskin.
Yeah, good man. So let me ask you this then, because you're still working at the Capitol. And again, I just want to dive back into it because, I was watching a television show, and the other day, it's really amazing. It's called Echo 3. Have you seen it? It's fantastic.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, it's on Apple TV. It's called Echo 3. I think it's done by the same folks that did The Hurt Locker. It's that sort of genre. It's amazing, about special forces team. Yeah. And this one woman, she's put into a prison environment, and it's in Venezuela and Colombia. And so I have to tell you, when I watch it, I get chest pains. And I went out because I spent 51 days in solitary confinement. And, there's a feeling when you're by yourself that solitary confinement plays with your head 24/7, 51 days. Not an easy task. It is rough, and I'll tell you, it's really, really rough. My question to you is, do you think that the insurrectionists still in Congress have any remorse for their actions in around the 6th?
That's a good question. I'll put it like this. I think that the people that are making public statements about downplaying what happened that day, they're making public statements about it, are doing so to save face. I think about it. I think that Speaker McCarthy, at the time when he was leader McCarthy, he said that he spoke to the president, and the president bears responsibility. But there's also been reports that Trump has said that I don't take it, it's not my fault, So I think privately, I think a lot of these individuals they know that they were wrong, and whether that's become from the people that are, look at the host on Fox News. They were texting how bad it was on January. Hey, he's got to stop this. This is bad. This is bad. We can't have this.
That was Sean Hannity texting Lauren Ingram, right? To Don Jr. to Kevin
they
were
texting
Mark
privately
Meadows.
how bad it was, and then literally the day that the four of us officers, Sergeant Goodell, Danny Hodges, Mike Fanone, and myself testified, Laura Ingram went on to mock us on her show later that night and give us awards, mocking awards like best political performance or best exaggeration of a story, like literally the day we testified. And then they had the nerve to be texting Mark Meadows about how bad it was that day. So they say anything publicly to, like I said, appease their base. But they know inside, and you know what? That's one of the reasons I'm continuing to speak out, because I know deep in my heart, I'm following my conscience and following my heart, and I'm doing what I believe is right. And I can live with myself, and I can sleep well at night. And at the end of their life, they're going to be like, "Yo, I was really full of shit," and I won't be able to say that.
Are you able to sleep well at night?
Because my conscience is clear, sure, but as far as worried about the health of this country, that kind of keeps me up. It's a lot of things that always go on my mind, a lot of things that I'm passionate about, and it weighs heavy on my heart. But that's the thing. Like, That's another thing. But I'm coming back to therapy real quick. It helps me. Like I'm able to detach for a while and get myself centered and focused and be able to sleep at night. You know, it's worth it though.
Yeah, I may have to try this therapy thing because
do that shit, man. I'm fucking
Dude,
rooting for you, bro.
I'm not joking. If I sleep 3.5 hours a night, I went to sleep last night at midnight and I got up at exactly 2:58 in the morning. And I didn't go back to sleep.
Bro.
And I do that every day. You could see I'm fucking tweeting and doing all my shit on because I'm bored and I'm watching television and seeing what's going on. I think I've seen every single show on streaming. I mean, it's terrible because
hey, dude, I'm gonna get you into therapy. And we gotta tell Nicole Wallace about it because Nicole is always telling me. I'm telling you, she's so amazed by how I promote mental health, and that's gonna be my biggest accomplishment. I'm gonna get you into fucking therapy, man.
Right. So look, you and some of your fellow officers were some of the first people to speak with the January 6th committee. If you would, enlighten my listeners here. Tell us what that process was like for you and what happened to you afterward. I mean, suddenly, literally overnight, snap the fingers, you become a public figure. And it's a lot to take in. People don't understand. I get it. I walk onto the street, I go to a restaurant. There are people who love me. Thank God it's a lot more than the people here in New York that hate me.
Yeah.
But when I get the haters, I had a guy on 63rd Street, stopped his BMW, stopped in the middle of the street while it was on. He wanted to fight me. Literally, he wanted to fight me, screaming, you're a rat, you're a fucking rat. Rats need to be stomped out. So I said, all right, motherfucker, come on. Come stomp me out. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now I ain't 6'7" like you, my friend. But I tell you something, I fought enough in my lifetime, especially Muay Thai. I'll take that motherfucker's legs right out. And then I'm going to drop a whole bunch of elbows right in his face.
There you go. You know what, man? So to talk about, like, when I got the opportunity to testify, I jumped at it, no questions asked, because I felt like it was a continuation of service and duty to my country, to be able to tell the facts of that day and give a voice of what at that time we testified June, around that time, about what people were already minimizing that happened that day. And I think it was instrumental to keep going and set the record straight on the record. Another thing, but a side note real quick, I've been under oath 3 different times and about the events of that day. So if people want to lie or people want to have other facts, you're more than welcome to get under oath and tell your side of the story instead of claiming the 5th. Tell the truth. Okay, you're on the record. If it didn't happen like we're saying it did, you go on the record under oath and you tell us what happened. Until then, until your statements are under oath, they don't mean shit to me.
Right. My friend, 8 times I gave congressional testimony. 8 times. And yet I still have the same haters. Now, I don't know whether they're bots or bot farms and so on, but there are plenty that are real. And they all have a comment that they want to make. Really? You think that I'm holding back? You think that I'm protecting anybody? I have given, like you, I gave the facts and nothing but the facts. By the way, your testimony was, I think, July 27th, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, gotcha. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I tell you, and honestly, the fame that comes with it, it's not great.
Or infamy.
I want to go down and see my parents down in Florida. I'm actually concerned. Yeah, I'm actually concerned because.
No. So you're right, because those people are insane, and we saw it. Like, look what happened. Like I said, on January 6th, we saw it. We saw what they're willing to do to support the former president. So yeah, that concern is real. Political violence is real. We see it. Like I said, no matter who it comes from, whether it's people saying Antifa shouldn't do it or the MAGA, nobody should be doing that shit, man. Keep your opinion peaceful. Keep it civil. I mean, hell, even if you calling names and cursing somebody out, whatever, don't put your hands on them. Don't threaten nobody. Everybody deserves to be able to express their opinion, no matter how bizarre it is, and that's, but let's remember that it's just an opinion and it's not the gospel.
Yeah, that is very true. I mean, it was for me. Remember when I testified before the House Oversight Committee, 9 hours, 9 hours. And I started out and I told you, meaning the country, not you specifically.
Yeah.
He's a racist. He's a con man. He's a fraud. He's a cheat. And I turned out to be right. And then I told you my biggest fear and why I elected to appear without any hesitation when Congressman, God rest his soul, Elijah Cummings,
what a great man.
Wonderful man,
great man,
asked me to do it. And he said to me, you stand on the precipice of the most important issue confronting American democracy today. He goes, and the question becomes, how will you be remembered? How will your children remember you? How will your wife look at you? And he didn't have to say anything more than that. This man had a way with words. He made me fucking cry. I called him up that night and I yelled at him. I said, did you have to make your final closing speech so powerful? You made me fucking cry on television. And he laughed. He was, God bless his soul. We need 100 more Elijah Cummings.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, to that point, the question that you're asking, that he said, former Representative Adam Kinzinger said something similar to that. He said, my children are going to be proud to have my last name. And you know what? Like you said, doing what's right is more than just about a moment. It's how you should live your life. Just do what's right. Like without any hesitation, without any question. That's the thing. Morals aren't universal, but goddamn, I wish they were, man.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something, right? Now, Let me then ask you this. As you look at what's happening now in the House with Kevin McCarthy, giving so much power to the MAGA extremists in the party and praising Trump for helping his effort to get the gavel, you think that Republicans have learned anything since the insurrection?
One thing that I'll say with it was supposed to be this, all the political pundits, hell, even members of Congress, Fox News, whatever, all the conservative sites were saying there was supposed to be this huge red wave. And it wasn't. It wasn't. Which was historic, by the way. Any incumbent, president who's 2 years in, the midterm elections during the presidency have always gone the way of the party that's not in power. But this did, but it was minuscule, and I think that sent a message. But I mean, even look on January 6th at the Capitol, they did a moment of remembrance, a moment of silence on January 6th, and only one Republican congressman showed up. And the year before, Liz Cheney was the only Republican, along with her father. And it shouldn't be a Democrat or Republican thing. Sure, a lot of people may argue that the January 6th committee is politicized, whatever. You can have your opinion about that. But when it comes to a moment to pay your respects to fallen officers, or the hurt and the division that day will forever have in the history, that the lasting effect that it has, that kind of hurt my heart just as an American citizen, not even just as a police officer, but just the fact, for a moment of silence, we can't all stand together and honor the memory of what those people that day. Like that shit hurt my heart, like as an American. That shit sucked. One, like, come on, this shit. Yeah, the causes of January 6th may have been political, and the investigations may have been political, but it happened. It happened, period. And we need to be able to acknowledge that and pay homage to the people that What's so ironic about the votes for the speaker on January 6th when it was happening? That's what we fought for them to have the right to do that shit, you know? And that's what's so frustrating, man. We fought our asses off so democracy could continue. No matter if it's Kevin McCarthy, Pelosi, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter. I don't care who it is. The fact that process still exists is a direct result of what me and my coworkers did that day. It happened. It exists now. Imagine if they got in there and hung Mike Pence like they wanted to do, and to kill Nancy Pelosi, which they said they wanted to do. What if that shit actually happened? Do you think that what would those votes for speaker look like 2 years ago?
Harry,
2 years from now.
Yeah, okay. Totally agree with you. It's beyond. Could you imagine, and I brought this up a couple of times before, but could you imagine if this is how divided this country really actually is? If the insurrectionists were all black, could you imagine what would have happened? You talked about some blood that was on the concrete. Could you imagine the force that would have come out in order to stop this? So I bring that up. I bring that up because it fucking hits me right to the core, where this is not the America that we strive to be. This isn't the America that we were growing to be. And if we don't start growing up, as you use the word, maturing, we're really going to be in big trouble. Really big trouble.
Think about this shit. Donald Trump, when the dude wanted a photo op, and he had the fucking I don't know, they used for a photo op, but he wouldn't direct the National Guard to send an attack, to stop an attack on the U.S. Capitol where they wanted to kill Mike Pence. But you're going to use all this force for a photo op. You're not even in danger at the moment. And you can save it for another time. Give me a break, dude.
And which brings me to my next question to you. So what happens if there's no accountability for the insurrection by any of the people that are in power? Because we've seen plenty of these foot soldiers, these low-level fucking nut job numbskulls going to jail and so on, but not a single member of Congress, not a single person in Trump's inner circle that were there and responsible have seen any accountability so far. So if none of the people responsible for January 6th are brought to justice, you think that something like the insurrection could or will happen again?
If there's no accountability, I tell your listeners and the rest of the world to get used to my face and get used to my voice, because I'm not shutting up until there is accountability. I will play, I don't necessarily know if it's devil's advocate here, but Merrick Garland came to see us. And when I say us, I mean Capitol Police officers who were there on January 6th. In the following days, time was a blur during that time. So I don't know if it was a week, a month, but he came to see us afterwards. And he told us they would get to the bottom of it and they would seek out accountability and justice. And he said that to us. And I believe him. He looked us in the face, he looked us in the eyes, and he told us that. And I believe him. I don't know the timetable of what it takes to charge for an insurrection. I don't know. I'm not a historian. I'm not a legal scholar. I don't pretend to be. But like I said, on January 7th, if I was the attorney general, I would have brought charges that day because they told us.
Me too.
They told us why they were there. But there can that brings me to my point. You can't move on from if you don't correct what's happened. And yes, there's nothing to say that this shit won't happen again. People say, well, what can you do to prevent it? We have so many safeguards. It doesn't matter what safeguards you have in place, like the Electoral College Act and all that stuff. That's cool. But all these safeguards don't mean anything if the person that is in power is going to circumvent those safeguards. Like Trump was going to install his own attorney general to circumvent ways to get him to remain president. Like it doesn't, but thankful for the courage of the people that did stand up to keep that shit from happening. It takes good people to stop it. It doesn't matter what safeguards you have in place. It doesn't matter if the person is willing to circumvent that shit. It doesn't.
Harry, do you remember when I emphatically stated that the reason I'm here today testifying is my biggest fear is if Donald Trump loses the election, there will never be a peaceful transfer of power. And I believed it then, I believe it now. There was more. I also talked about his inflation of his assets, deflation for tax purpose. You saw today he just got nailed for 1.6 by the judge in the Attorney General's case. His company, 17 counts by the district attorney, Alvin Bragg, and so on. Like I said, death by 1,000 cuts.
You know what's crazy about the Trump thing? Real quick. You know, he got fined 1.6 million. So I'm sure we're going to see a fucking fundraiser for him coming up soon.
Out.
It's
already
coming.
Came out.
Is it already out?
Already came out. Already came out.
I'm not fucking surprised, dude.
Could you imagine? So look, I want to ask you this now, because I know that you've written a memoir that's entitled A Capitol Police Officer's Fight for Accountability and Good Trouble. Now, I assume by good trouble that you're referencing the late Congressman John Lewis, another beacon of, of American, diplomacy and civil rights and so on. So if you would, tell my listeners about the book. And do you think that you'd have written this book if it hadn't been for the events of January 6th?
I'm not gonna get into it. The release date is October, so I'll keep y'all on edge a little bit. But what I will say is that it was homage to John Lewis. One of the things that I contemplated while deciding to keep this public, once I started getting attacked by right-wing media, getting death threats, and back up. One of the most memorable images in my head from January 6th was once a little bit of order has been restored and most of the rioters were out of the building. I remember walking by Steny Hoyer's office, and Steny Hoyer, the majority leader at the time, had his American flag out there, state of Maryland flag, and it was a big sign, almost like a cardboard, but it was like fancy card. I don't forget the name of that material is slipping my mind, but it had the picture of John Lewis and his quote about the good trouble quote. And it was ripped into shreds. It was shredded, like ripped into tiny pieces. And this is a big ass piece of paper, or excuse me, a big ass cardboard, big ass sign. And they took the time, the rioters, to destroy it. And one thing I thought, John Lewis, I'm sure he faced things that I can't even imagine. And if he did all that for us just for equal rights, why should I be afraid just to stand up to a couple of right-wing nut jobs to attack me? Of course I can stand up. So that's like a little way of paying homage to the late, great John Lewis.
Do you remember which quote? Because he has quite a few pretty,
When you see something, stand up again, get into trouble, good trouble, push back. Well, with the pushback, get into, I don't know the quote by heart, but I do have, it's funny, I have the word, I have good trouble tattooed on my arm.
There you go. I think what you're referring to is when you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have to speak up. You have to say something. You have to do something.
Mea Culpa.
Exactly. So, look, Harry, as the hour comes to an end, and as I told you when we were just chatting offline, the hour goes by real quick.
Yeah, it does, man. We could.
We could do this forever. Is right. I have just one last question for you. So, and again, before I ask it, I just like to congratulate you on receiving that Presidential Citizens Medal. You truly, truly deserve it.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about that day and about any of the good things that have come out of January 6th? I suspect that a therapist would tell you that you need to, there's a book which is called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And that's one of the things that you're supposed to do, which is to look to the light, look to something good that comes out of tragedy. And Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor in Auschwitz. And he took out of that experience something good, which again, I'm not really sure I understand it. I'm certainly not there. But assuming that there have been some good things, because one great thing from my perspective is that you didn't fold and that you've proven yourself to be a real American hero. And you should really be proud of that. And I'm sure your family are really proud of you. Tell me about that.
Thanks for bringing that up. That's a great question, man. I tell you what, January 6th will forever be associated with one of the darkest days of American history. However, I'm so grateful to President Biden that on January 6th, 2023, 2 years after the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, he presented us with his medal. And I'll tell you, it created a new memory for January 6th. Now, the January 6th, 2021 doesn't go away. However, I can't acknowledge January 6th anymore without remembering that's the day that I was awarded the nation's second highest civilian award. And I'm completely honored, grateful, humbled by it. My family was there. My mother, my father, my sisters, my daughter was there at the White House to see me receive that award. There was a text thread that went out today, because it was a week ago today when we got the award. It was a text thread. My mother said, just think, a week ago, we were in the White House watching our son, and that's just the pride that my family have. That's just, you can't take that away from. January 6th will be associated, yes, with one of the darkest days, but also one of the proudest moments of my life. So I'm appreciative of the president for honoring me and the other recipients in that way, which I'm sure, just like I said, it created a new memory, and I'm thankful for it.
One of the interesting things about Joe Biden is something that everybody, Republican, Democrat, Independent alike, will all acknowledge, is he's an incredibly empathetic person. And so you could rest assured that when he gave you that medal to honor you, that was real. That wasn't a photo op. And again, for that, you should be incredibly, incredibly proud of yourself for what you did, for standing up for democracy, for protecting our capital, the people's home, the symbol of American democracy. I think you're a true American hero, you and all of the Capitol Police. Everybody that puts on the uniform every day, I find them to be, our American heroes. And our teachers too, by the way. I got to throw them in. And
love the teachers, man. I got a ton of friends that are teachers.
So I wish you all the best. Stay in touch. When you're here in New York, look me up, hit me up, because we have to have a celebratory drink. How's that?
Yes, let's do it, man. I would love that. I love that opportunity, man. And thank you, man. I don't think that gets enough credit. Like in this day and age, just speaking out and saying the truth has become such a lost art, so to speak. Like nobody really does it. And, good for you for doing that and, standing up for what's right.
All right, then don't forget about me. Make sure you tell, and you make sure.
I got you.
I got you. Tell Joe that, okay?
I got you, man. I got you.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All righty. You be safe.
Thanks,
I'll speak
bro.
to you soon.